Welcome to the Modernize or Die podcast, CFML News Edition, where we keep you up to date with everything going on in the Cold Fusion community. We'll share the latest news on events, releases to engines, frameworks, libraries, and tools, as well as spotlighting quality content from the community. Welcome to Modernize or Die podcast. It is episode 221. And I'm Gavin Pickin, your host today, and I'm running solo today. A lot of busy people at Otis, and we weren't able to get a co-host, but it's okay. We got some people in the chat, so hi David, and anyone else in the chat, say hi. We can get this moving. So first up, I want to thank our sponsor, Otis Solutions, because without them, we wouldn't be here. So Otis, obviously the maker of Coldbox, CommandBox, ForgeBox, TestBox, and all your favorites boxes out there, including BoxLang. Obviously, we have a lot of free and open source software, and we have professional open source support, so you can support us in lots of different ways if you want to see things back to Auto Solutions. Into the Box is coming up in April and May in Washington, D.C., so if you can buy some tickets to that, that's one way to help us out. Like and subscribe to our videos on YouTube, subscribe on your podcast apps, leave us a review. You can sign up for a free or paid account on CFCast. We have some items up there on autosolutions.com/about-us/shop, which is our Box Life store. So we got some cool shirts if you guys want to find some of those. And we have some Otis books as well. So we have 102 Coldbox HMVC quick tips and tricks up on Gumroad. We also have them on Amazon as well. If you want to buy a paper copy or a hardback copy, and we have them online for free, or you can even get a PDF copy through modern-cfml.otisbooks.com. So lots of different things out there that you can do to support us. Obviously, some of those are free, just going and liking our repos and GitHub and things like that. We appreciate all the help. Another way that we have people helping support this podcast and other open source initiatives is Patreon. So today, right now, we have 59 Patreons at patreon.com/autosolutions, which we'll tell you a bit more about as we go further through the show. Okay, well, we have lots of stuff to talk about today, so let's get into the news and announcements. And as I said, just me running solo, so you're going to have to listen to me the whole time. I apologize in advance, but we'll try and keep it lively. Hey, Scott, I see Scott's in the chat as well. Well, it's good to have you guys in the chat. So first up, we have some updates. So those who are running Lucy 6, there's a Lucy 6.1.1 release candidate out. So mainly focuses on bug fixes, but there are some useful enhancements in that as well. So you guys can check that out. And Cold Fusion 2023 and 2021 have released October 15th updates. So their update 11 for 2023 and update 17 for 2021 were released. Includes bug fixes, enhancements to the administrator, language, CF setup, database, and other areas. They also contain a lot of library upgrades, as Netty, EHCache, etc. Some Tomcat stuff, I believe, was in that version as well. But just so you know, if you are doing the update, there are some issues with the update. One of the known issues is that PDF services page in the administrator won't work, even if you have the HTML to PDF package installed. So there is some instructions on there on how to sort of reset it. You have to do like a manual purge of the feeless cache and then reinstall the update, the HTML to PDF package again to get that working. But just wanted to let you know that those are all out there. Okay, so once you got those updates, you also might want to look at the Java updates. So October 2024 updates for Java. So we have Java 8, 11, 17, 21, and 23. And Charlie Earhart wrote up a really good post on this. So I'm sharing that link in the show notes and in chat. But one thing to notice here is they've changed a few things. And one of them is some HTTP limits. And so now there's a limit size on headers. And I was like, that's interesting. I wonder if that bit me, because something that was working before just stopped working recently, and I don't know why, but it might have something to do with the crazy headers that we're passing. So apparently now there's a default length in Java 17 or 11. There's certain ones that updated, some did, some didn't. But there's quite a few changes in all of those. So there's 5 different Java releases, and as Charlie said, that's kind of crazy. But yeah, we do have that. There were a lot of bug fixes and security fixes in all those different versions. So definitely check out Charlie's blog post as usual. Super thorough, great resource to go through. So thank you, Charlie, for that. But yeah, that might have found my bug. So interesting. I'll have to go dive into that a little deeper. Another thing from Adobe, they announced CF Summit India. And so this year it's going to be hosted in 2 cities, which is kind of interesting. But they're going to be doing Bengaluru and Noida at the same day. So it's a free opportunity for you guys to learn, connect, and grow with the best minds in the industry. If you're in India or somewhere close, that sounds like it could be fun. Just never seen one with 2 days or the same day, 2 cities at the same time. So I'm not sure if we're going to do like a virtual conference from some of the sessions broadcast across or not. Pretty neat actually though. So if you guys are in the area, go check that out. There's a blog post again in the show notes and in chat. Okay, so we also have some other interesting news. This is something James Moberg posted about, and he's basically using CF Payment, which is now retired. So if you guys are using that, you might see that it's been retired recently, but part of that it uses, PayPal's part of PayPal Payflow and all of those things. But I guess PayPal changed their MVP SOAP API for the Website Payments Pro accounts, and it stopped working at the start of the month. So if you guys are using one of those ones, apparently some older sites are still running that, and I guess they've changed it to basically, I think they marked it as legacy October 12th of 2021, and so it stopped working at the start of this month. So James has whipped up a new API REST CFC, so if you need to update your code to run, he's got that on his blog post. So if you're using PayPal and you got some weird issues with Website Payments Pro not working anymore, this could be why. And he's got the code that'll actually make it work, which is neat. So thanks for sharing, James. Okay. Another big announcement, newsworthy I thought, from CF Summit was ColdFusion is switching to that subscription-only model. And so that plan happened next year sometime. So Fusion Reactor, which is a Adobe reseller, if you didn't know, is offering a special deal. So basically, they say, while they don't know when the date for the Adobe switch is, Fusion Reactor customers have an exclusive opportunity to secure their last perpetual license and save significantly in the process. And so basically, if you buy before the end of the year through Fusion Reactor, you can go ahead and basically purchase an upgrade, and they give upgrade options from, I think, 16, 18, 21, 23 to get the new version. You can get a perpetual license before they switch, and that way you'll be good until the next version comes out. And so they got an option for that. So I'm going to share that link as well. But that's a good idea. And they got some pretty good discounts on it too, so should make it worthwhile for any of those thinking about switching. Probably be a good time to do so. And again, Fusion Reactor is a great product, and it's cool they're offering such a deal. So go check that out. And a little bit of funny news. Apparently, James Moberg was talking to Microsoft Copilot and asked a question. And so James basically said, based on the code that's being generated, may I assume that Copilot isn't capable of generating ColdFusion code? And its response was, I get it. ColdFusion can be tricky, especially with its unique quirks. It's a niche language and not as widely used as others, which can make it harder to generate precise code. However, I'm here to help tweak and refine the code you're working on. And it says, if you need anything else or have another language you're comfortable with, I'm all ears. What do you think? So I thought it was kind of funny that even Microsoft Copilot's getting a little snarky about ColdFusion and its quirks. So too funny. It's kind of weird though. It's usually pretty good about most of the code, but obviously if you're just asking it in a chat format, it might not be as helpful. But anyway, thought that was kind of fun and funny. Next up, we have some new releases and updates. So I think we mentioned in the last episode, but We didn't have a blog post for it, so I'm going to share that now. But we have a new module called CBSSO, so Simplifying OAuth and SAML for Coldbox Applications. So we've unveiled this new module, game-changing module, basically trying to make it easier to integrate into OAuth and SAML identity providers than ever before. So you don't have to worry about those single sign-on flows, because some of those can be pretty painful. So whether you authenticate through Google, Microsoft, Facebook, or custom identity providers, CBSSO streamlines the entire process. And so I've got the link here for that. You can find out more about it or look on the Otis blog. But that should be a nice one there. And like the fact it ties into cybersecurity when and if you need to do that. Now, we did have Socketbox. We announced that, a new WebSocket library. But I'm also going to share the link for a cool new demo. And if you haven't checked this out, it's pretty cool. Now, I don't think I have my screen sharing set up for this one. So I'm just going to share the link in the chat, and it's going to be in the show notes. But Brad posted it on the community website, and we have a blog post out about that. But basically, we had a chat demo, which was kind of cool, but this new one's a lot more interactive and pretty nice. So we'll have to have you guys play with that and see some of the cool things you can do with that. So Brad made this little interactive option where you could choose to send messages to different channels or groups of channels and then receive messages based on different things. So it's a pretty cool little demo, and all the code is up on GitHub, so you can check it out and see how he wrote it and how he worked. So pretty neat. We also have been busy with Boxlang. So obviously we're rocking out the Boxlang releases, and we've had another couple since the last episode. So Boxlang Beta 18, so Boxlang 1.0.0 Beta 18 released. And that one we had 5 new features, 3 improvements, and 11 bug fixes. And so you can find out more about that in the blog post shared. And then last week we were up to Beta 19, pretty busy on that one. We had 7 new features, 11 improvements, and 8 bug fixes. And so, again, lots of things moving. We're really moving hard towards a final 1.0 release candidate, so getting very close. But I do know that we have several customers using Boxlang in their production environment, which is pretty crazy. So they're using it, and things have been going pretty well. There was a quick little bug that popped up in Beta 19, but they jumped on that quickly and got that taken care of. So really cool to see them using that. So very cool. So a lot of busy releases out there. If you got any other releases, let us know, and we'll try to notify you about them as well. But lots of good stuff out there. Okay, a little bit quieter time on the webinars, meetups, and workshops. There was one from SAC Interactive recently, but I don't see the YouTube link for that, so we can't share it. And there was another one from the Seattle user group. So there's a few user groups that if you sign up on meetup.com, you can get the Zoom link when you've signed up. But if you don't, then you can't. But there is one coming up here November 20th, so just under a month away. And that's going to be Boost Your Confidence and Silence the Inner Critic to Overcome Imposter Phenomenon. And so that one's up on meetup.com. If you want to go check that out, Nolan Irk runs that group. They have a lot of great speakers from a lot of different areas. The JavaScript debugger was last week, and I was hoping to find the link for that, but I couldn't find it. So I'll have to try and go register for these so I get the link so we can share them. But a lot of good ones there. And again, if you want to keep up with these, the Facebook group, a lot of people post to that, and on LinkedIn, a lot of people share there as well. So a few different places you can go and look for more webinars, meetups, and workshops. So CFCast, we just had a few of the plugins up there recently. I know that Brad just recorded a Socketbox demo of the new site with this cool interactive demo. We'll be posting that there shortly as well. So go check out CFCast. A lot of great content on there. A lot of people asking about object-oriented programming. There's a great course there that Nolan Irk recorded a little while ago about object-oriented programming. So that's another great one you can go check out there on CFCast as well. So next up, we have conferences, trainings, and big announcement, as I mentioned before, CF Summit India 2024. So If you guys are going to be there, that's December 7th, 2024. Again, in two cities, Bengaluru and Noida. I hope I pronounced that right. So that's going to be the two cities. You can register for free at cf-indiasummit.attendees.com. That's the site there. And there's actually a speaker application. So if you are in the area, maybe you can even apply to speak at that conference. So looks like an interesting one. I know Luis did attend a couple of years ago when they had the last India CF Summit, and he said it was a really good event. So obviously a lot of different crowds, a lot of people that we don't get to see as often. Not everybody can make it out to the European and the American conferences, so it's good to see a lot more friendly faces there. Into the Box is coming up in April and May. Washington, D.C. next year. So April 30th through the 2nd of May. Remember, blind tickets, they're still available for 50% off. So if you want to get a good deal, do that before we announce the speakers. We are going to be closing the call for speakers here shortly. So you got just a few weeks left if you want to apply to speak it Into the Box. The link is in the show notes. You can do that. And again, if you want to get tickets, tickets are available as well. So you guys can go check out those links. Again, 50% off is a great deal. And then once we get the call for speakers closed, we'll get all that out to you. We'll decide on some workshops. If you guys got any recommendations for workshops, something you want to see, something you want to work on, let us know in the chat or hit us up on Box Team Slack. We're always interested in what everybody wants to see and do at the conference. We want to make sure it's as good as possible, and we love having all the workshop attendees. It's a really good part. Really get to spend a little more time with everybody in that and get to know them better. So we always enjoy the workshops. But if you can just make the conference, 2 days of great content just for the conference is still a lot of fun, and we'll get to see a lot of cool things. And remember, Socket Box, we're gonna have Giancarlo JC gonna be doing a news talk on all the new cool box or socket box options. So if you've seen one of his sessions, it's pretty neat. And with Brad's demo, he's gonna have to step it up a notch, I think, JC. So if you hear this, you better make it big. After that, in May, we have May 22nd and 23rd, 2025. CF Camp is going to be holding their conference, the Thomas Hotel, Munich Airport. So cfcamp.org. I haven't seen any posts about speakers submissions or anything yet, but I know they'll be posting that shortly with more information as they get it. So a lot of great conferences coming up. Start planning, make sure your budget's ready, your boss knows you want to go. Hopefully we can see you guys at some of these conferences next year. Okay. Blogs, tweets, and videos of the week. Well, we have quite a lot. Try and get through these. We did mention Fusion Reactor talking about securing your perpetual license, so we'll just go over that one quickly. But again, great deals on upgrades or extra licenses if you're looking to do that before the switch to the subscription-only model. So we have a blog post from Order Solutions about continuing Cold Fusion training. It's essential for these 6 important reasons. So obviously, maintaining that competitive advantage in today's fast-paced technology landscape requires more than just having a stable web application. So we've got to keep pushing things forward, and there's six important reasons why you want to keep your training up to date. And share that link here for you. Oops, it's too long. Guess we'll post that separately. Now, one thing we didn't mention in the news, which we probably should have you seen all the WordPress drama? So those in the chat, have you seen the WordPress drama? Are you a little scared about that now? So we actually wrote a Content Box blog post about, is WordPress drama holding you back? Discover an alternative with Content Box. So if you guys are a little worried about what's going on in the WordPress drama world, Content Box might be a good option for you in the CF world. So for those of you who don't know, WordPress, basically the open source provider, they took venture funding by the sounds of it, and it sounds like they're about due on paying up on their massive returns. And they figured out that WordPress engine, one of the big hosts that's hosting it, doesn't pay a cent towards WordPress, and so basically they're suing them. They're taking over plugins and just taking over everything. It's just, it sounds like the guys lost it. Basically, they're just freaking out. And David Bell just says it sounds a bit like Mirror's decision, doesn't it? Maybe. I mean, Mirror changed their model, but can you imagine like Otis basically, if you had some ForgeBox plugin or something that basically Otis just decided to take over that and like replace your slug with basically pointed the slug at us. I mean, everything that was in there, like open source, their whole package management for WordPress, essentially, they're just taking it over. So if there's a paid plugin, they replaced it with, uh, they basically replaced it with their plugins. In other words, next time you go to install this certain plugin, now you're getting their version of it. And yeah, it's just kind of crazy. I mean, it's not like they shut something down. They basically took over it. It's just like, bait and switch. And it's kind of crazy. I mean, DHH from Rails had a little outlash. There's some blog posts, there's videos, there's a whole bunch on it. It's kind of crazy how nuts it is. And so there's lawsuits filing everywhere, and it's kind of crazy. So yeah, a lot of people, I mean, it's crazy because basically the whole infrastructure of WordPress is at risk, and everyone who built their businesses on it now is not sure what to do. Obviously they can fork the code and everything, but everything in there points back to this, the central location for everything WordPress. So I'm not sure what they're going to do, but it's kind of crazy. I mean, yeah. So anyway, if you don't want to mess with that, which I don't blame you, Content Box is an Otis product. So it's a great blog system that we've built. So maybe that could help you find a Cold Fusion CMS. Okay, let's get out of the crazy. Let's talk about Ben Adele and his blog post, running memory leak detection after every Cold Fusion request. So over on LinkedIn, Ben was posting his his blog post as he does, and Charles Robertson made a note about how unnerving it is to have unscoped local variables leak into the variable scope of persisted components. So this sort of memory leak, can lead to cross-contamination of requests and, data to being shown to other data potentially, and there's all sorts of problems around that. And so in this blog post, Ben talked about basically making his own little leak detection software. And then every time he runs a request, at the end of it, it checks to see if there's any leaking variables. And he actually found a couple in the example that he was showing, which he said is not a big deal in this scenario, but obviously in a bigger app that can cause a lot of issues. So if you stick around, the ForgeBox module of the week, we're going to talk a little bit more about leak detection, memory leak detection. We've got a module that you can look at and might be helpful in that process too. But it's a good article by Ben. It's something to think about for sure. And actually, he has another blog post which he talks about, sort of tags onto this, which we'll talk about here soon. Okay, we also had a ColdBox free tip. So from the book, we've got a tip series that we've been releasing tips from the ColdBox book. And so this next tip is CommandBox ColdBox commands. So ColdBox CLI is a module that we've built for CommandBox, so you can actually run ColdBox specific commands, make your development life easier right from CommandBox. So you can scaffold out functions, you can scaffold out tests, you can scaffold entire apps, do a lot of different things right from the CLI. And so this blog post tells you a bit more about that and how to use it, but it's definitely a big power move for sure. Okay, we got a blog post from Charlie on the Cold Fusion October 15 update. So if you want to read the fine print of what they actually are, what they cover, and what they're fixing, Charlie does a great breakdown of that. So you can find out more information on careheart.org. We also mentioned James Moberg's Cold Fusion PayPal REST API CFC, since the issues with PayPal just killing one of their supports. It was marked as legacy for a couple of years, in all fairness, almost 3 years now. But if you need to continue supporting it. The REST API will do the trick. So that's a good one there. Okay, so Ben Nadell also kind of a working theory in this one here. So co-locating his ColdFusion, CSS, and JavaScript files. And so this one, he's talking about how, if you got it, say, a view for something, a lot of times we wouldn't actually put our CSS and JavaScript code right inside that page. If you have a controller, you have that sort of separate, but our ColdFusion's mixed together. And it's funny because we have all these different worlds, right? Where if you're looking at React and other things, sometimes you have the TypeScript separate from the from the CSS, etc. But Vue kind of puts things together unless you pull it apart. And so he's sort of just experimenting with some different options. And the comments in Ben's blog is always interesting because people sort of share their opinions. And so if you want to find out more about what he's doing, throw files in there. Sorry, I think my internet went. Hopefully you guys got me back. So, but if you read that blog post from Ben, he talks about one of his options, and he's just trying to figure out a way that works. So if you guys got any ways that you think works, let us know. And it's kind of interesting. Different languages, different frameworks have their own way of doing it. Curious to see what you guys think there. Funny because we sort of like to separate everything out, and then we like to bring it back together. So it's sort of Vue, everyone likes the single components, but then we pull stuff out to the stores, and it's kind of strange. I'm not sure what the best way is. Whatever works for you and your team is the best, probably. We do have a blog post on the CBSSO, so I'll share that here if you guys are interested in that. Again, it's a cool module dealing with those third-party things. I've done a few before. It was not fun or easy, and it's really hard to debug. So using a module with some configuration options should be a much easier bet. And then we can, as a community, help support each other and make our lives easier to try to maintain that. That's for sure. Next up, we have one from Charlie on the Java updates, which we covered a little bit earlier. So I'll go over that quickly. But next up, this is the one I was talking about from Ben, where basically we have an issue in ColdFusion, which he brings up in this one, saying making a case for var declarations in ColdFusion templates. And so basically, as you know, if you're using a CFC and you have a function, or even a function inside of a CFM page, you can var scope variables inside the function, but you can't var scope them just randomly in a CFM. If you do, it'll throw an error. But if you copy that code into a CFC, now you've basically just introduced a memory leak, like you talked about in the other issue, where since you weren't var scoping it in the CFM, you copy that code into the CFC. Now you have to go through that CFC code you just copied in and look for everywhere that you should have var scoped it if it was a function to begin with. So he posted it to the Adobe bug tracker, and this is something that comes up quite a lot. When you copy code from a CFC into a CFM, you get all these errors because of var scope. You put them back in, then you have all these basic leaks. So the leak detector is one way to do it. You can also use the var scoper, which works pretty good, but I've actually had issues with that in script. It seems to work really well in tags, but not so well in script, which I'm not sure if it's just the version I was using, but basically Ben's blog post was talking about how he thinks we should be able to use var scope inside of CFMs, because if you include that CFM into a CFC, did you just introduce memory leaks too? So it's an interesting one. I think he's got a good point, to be honest. I don't know why we don't have var scoping in the normal code version. I think it would be useful, even if it just, has the context. And of course, talking about boxline, there's context everywhere. Everywhere there's a context, and so you can sort of handle that. And Brad went on a 2 or 3 hour discussion with me one time about the context and everything, and trying to make it all work the way it did before, and maybe how to improve it. So, but yeah, have a look at that one. Maybe go vote on the Adobe Bug Tracker if you think it's worthwhile. I think he even mentioned they were discussing it in the Discord for the Working Code podcast as well. So definitely a good one to check out. Ben also shared, actually it's from a podcast he was listening to. It's called Engineering Room Podcast, which I haven't listened to that one. I might have to add that to my list. But he was talking about how Dave Farley said something about code quality, and he said it connected with it. And he said, um, basically, he talked about the importance of writing code that's easy to find and easy to delete. And that's sort of something that came up before. But something else they mentioned is maybe that write code that's safe and easy to change. And so if basically Dave's point, and this one Dave Farley's point was, if the code is hard to change, then it's probably not good quality. So if it's easy to change, the better quality it is. And that's sort of like his way to measure code. And so that made me think. A lot of times we talk about testing, how testing improves your code quality because it makes it easier to test. And if it's easy to test, it should be easy to change. And so maybe that does line up. So what do you guys think makes code quality better? What's a sign, or what's a metric that you can use to see if something's got good code quality? Because we always talk about it, but it's kind of hard to really put in words, right? So in the chat, let me know, what do you guys think good code quality means? And while they're doing that, I'm gonna send the message about Socketbox. So we have that socket library blog post there again on the Auto Solutions blog if you want to find out more. Did Luis write it? That's funny. Yeah. Well, Luis writes a lot of stuff. Do you think all of his code is good? Yeah, if you talk to some people, they might disagree. But yeah, I mean, obviously, Luis strives for that, and we try to learn from other languages too. But yeah, it's what's important. I mean, sometimes we abstract so much stuff that some people might think it's bad quality because it's not easy to find the code because it's abstracted too much. And that's sort of the thing. Sometimes all these design patterns, you abstract away everything when it makes it more complicated. And so maybe that's a sign that we're abstracted too far. And I know when I first started with Content Box, and when I was first using CodeBox, it was hard to see. It was hard to see where things were because I didn't understand the abstractions and everything else. And so I had to learn them first. So Scott's point was, if it's easy for someone to continue development on a project without too many questions, then that's high code quality. So yeah, that's another good point too. There's not too much magic. It's clear, structured, broken down well enough, and hopefully without breaking the world whenever they change something. So, and he says it's hard because some things can't be made simple because they're inherently complex. Yep, and that's where the perfect time to abstract something is, right? Even if it's just a function, says the function might be called some crazy manipulating logic call, and then inside that you can have all the crazy you want, but at least that call sort of abstracts that away at least. So when you're reading the higher up function, it might be easier to get past it. But yep, it's always a battle, right? Trying to find that. Well, I found another blog post this week from Michael Horn, and this was an interesting one. He was actually did like a little test on the array return type in CF query for Lucy, because obviously something you can do in Lucy that you can't do in Adobe currently is if you do a query, you can get back an array of structures instead of just having the normal query type, which if you're ever going to serialize for JSON and stuff, it looks like crazy and you've got to do a lot of manipulation to make it work. And so that's what Michael Horn said he'd done. He built this data type convert function, which basically does a query to an array and basically does exactly that. It converts a query object into an array of objects or structs, and it does it the hard way by looping over the rows and the columns and creating an array of structs. Doesn't sound like a terrible idea because that's what we basically have had to do, but when that number of rows gets big, it gets kind of crazy, right? So he wrote a little function and then handled 5,000 rows and did it both ways. And so for that conversion, the query itself took 112 milliseconds in CF query, but then to basically formalize the 5,000 records, it only took 5,000 milliseconds, but it took 5.362 seconds or 5,362 milliseconds to do the query and do the manipulation. But if you use CF query with the array return type, it did the whole thing in 141 milliseconds. So 112 for the query, 29 milliseconds versus what, 5200 milliseconds. So it just shows the level of, of performance when you drop down another level. So it's one of the main reasons we're doing boxlang, is because we can do a lot of things in ColdBox, and we build all these schedulers and task tools and everything else in Cold Fusion built on top of Lucy and Adobe, and they work great, but we just can't get the same level of performance when we're above the engine. If you do it in the engine level, it's so much faster. And so in boxlang, all these tools that we keep building on top of CFML, we're building inside the engine now, so we get all those performance values. We get all the speed for every little thing we want. So anytime we want something to be done, we never have to worry about doing it in the language. We can do it in the engine before it gets there. And Scott's just saying, if you can use a filter instead of a query of query with a query object, it's a big performance boost too. Yeah, there's a huge option with all of these things. It's like finding the right tweak. Now remember, with the query and the query object, that was terrible before Brad did that massive rewrite of the query of query for Lucy, what, a year ago now or something. And so if you look at his blog post for that, he saw how terrible it was and made a huge undertaking. I think it took him a long time. You can see a whole bunch of stuff there. But yeah, Scott was saying parallel processing is not worth it with smaller data sets, less than 10K generally. But yeah, so there's always different options, pros and cons to everything, but the cool thing is it just shows if you get down to the engine level, doing it in Java or whatever before you get up to the abstraction of Cold Fusion, it's just going to get so much faster. So just always good to see. So that's why I'm so excited about boxlang and all the hard work they're doing, is because everything's going to be faster because it can get lower. So very cool. Gato Cabezas had actually done some work recently. He's got his MBA and doing a lot of work with business intelligence, and so he actually wrote a blog post for us about leveraging real-time business intelligence for decision making. So if you guys are interested in business intelligence, check out that one. He's done a lot of work in that. It's pretty cool, some of the things he's doing with the business intelligence side of things. Something I should probably learn a bit more about. As I mentioned before, the CFCast series we have, Object-Oriented Programming Cold Fusion, that is available on CFCast. I've got a blog post here on the Otis blog telling you a little bit more about it. Go check that out. And our ColdBox free tip number 2. Basically, I'm going to paste that in here. Sorry, I got to do all the pasting myself this week. But fluid if statements using the when method. So basically, ColdBox 6, the when method simplifies conditional logic by allowing you to do chain execution blocks on Boolean values in a clean and fluent way. So we got this when, and if you're used to quick, we use when inside there as well. It's pretty cool. Oh man, lots of blog posts, and we've still got a couple more, but these ones are the boxlang specific ones. So we have boxlang 19 was launched again on the 18th, so I've got the link here for that one. And then we had a special little blog post from Jacob on the VS Code boxlang extension. So he dives a little bit more into the mini server and what that means and for the VS Code extension. So that's a great one. Go check that out. Pretty cool what you can do from the VS Code extension now, and it works great with Cold Fusion stuff, not just boxlang stuff. But highly recommend checking that out. The debugger is really cool too. So the mini server and everything else, it's great. So Jacob's writing a little series, so follow that one on the Otis blog as well. And we also released beta 18. Okay, enough blogs. Let's go find a job. Well, there was one blog post, job post posted recently, and so it was a full-time Cold Fusion developer position, ColdBox in parentheses, at Arlington, Virginia. That was posted October 15th, and you can find more information on that on the getcfmljobs.com website. So again, getcfmljobs.com. Has job postings there. You can post your own. It also pulls from sites like Indeed and other job posting websites for anything Cold Fusion or CFML related. If you do want to find other job postings, there may be some in the Slack team, the CFML Slack, or the Box team Slack channel. There's a job channel in each one of those that post CFML jobs. But there we go. So next up, we have our ForgeBox module of the week. And this week, we're going to talk about the Singleton Leak Protector. This is something Brad built. It's a debugging module to help you detect fast scoping issues in your singletons. So this is using Wirebox, and BNC used IOC, part of Framework 1. But you can use Wirebox inside of Framework 1 too. But in this one, we're using Wirebox. And basically, instead of using static code analysis, this actually latches onto Wirebox when you run it, like Ben was doing. And then each singleton, whenever it gets created, and then at the end of the process, the end of the life in the application, it'll see what variables have leaked out. So in other words, when you start up the CFC, and then later on it'll check what's changed. And so the leak detector has a cool little interface, and you can see all your CFCs with all the leaks in a nice sort of format. So Ben wrote one from scratch, which is cool. And it puts out the console, and this one here is something that Brad did a few years ago. We actually use this quite a lot when we're working with customers trying to help improve their code and look for bugs, and quite often this will find some things you don't expect it to have. So Singleton Leak Detector, and that's available up on ForgeBox. So that is our ForgeBox module of the week. Next up, we have our VS Code hint, tip, and trick of the week. And this week, we're going to look at the Visual Studio Code's WSL plugin. So that one, it's a cool little extension which allows you on Windows to basically build Linux applications on the Windows subsystem for Linux. So in other words, you get all the productivity of the Windows side while developing Linux-based tools, runtimes, and utilities. So if you want to just open up a folder from inside your WSL, just like you would from Windows, you can basically open it up and run that right from there. And it's got 30 million downloads or something, so it's pretty popular. I know a lot of people are really excited with the WSL, the Windows subsystem for Linux, and all the things you can do. But running it directly inside of the WSL will probably give you some speed benefits. I know that the bridge from Linux back to Windows can be trouble, so having it run directly in this might make it even faster. So a lot of good reviews on this one here too. So if you guys are using Windows subsystem, this might be a great way to tie into that. The main reason I'd like to use this more is the case sensitivity stuff that we do. A lot of times we're building on Windows, and then we might be deploying to Linux, and you have to worry about all the case sensitivity issues you didn't see. But if you can run it straight from there, develop there, then obviously you'll get all the benefits of having the strict case sensitivity. Now, for those who say I'm on Windows, I could do case sensitive mode on my drives. I've done that. I ran into all sorts of problems with that. I don't recommend doing that. I had more troubles than it was worth. So I guess Windows can have case sensitive drives and folders, but when you do that, it seems to cause a lot more problems than it's worth. So hopefully this is a better solution for those needing to do that. So again, the Visual Studio Code WSL extension is our VS Code hint, tip, and trick of the week. Last but not least, we are up to our Patreon supporters. So again, our Patreons, like a couple in the chat today. I see David and Scott in there chit-chatting. Thanks, guys. These are personally supporting us in our open source initiatives to make sure we have the funding for tools like CommandBox, ForgeBox, CodeBox, ContentBox, TestBox, and all the other boxes out there. And remember that the contributions fund the cloud infrastructure the community relies on for ForgeBox and our package management for CommandBox. So it's really important, and we really do appreciate each and every one of them. And again, we're up to 59 supporters, and that's great. And we have a range of packages from small accounts, just $10 a month, all the way up to some pretty big ones. And you do get some perks for that too. So annual memberships, they pay for the year and they save 10%. So great for the end of the year budgets. Or just if you want to save some money, you're going to support us for a year, do that and save a little bit too. And then you do get a few perks. So all Patreons have their own private channel in the Box Team Slack, and they have their private forum access on the community website. We'll get you a profile badge on the Audis community website as well. If you are bronze or higher, you'll also get a ForgeBox Pro account and CFCast subscription as a perk for the Patreon subscription. So ForgeBox Pro gives you some storage included and actually allow you to sync your settings and stuff, which is pretty neat too. And of course, CFCast, we have a lot of great content on there. And everything except for the exclusive ITB videos for the first 6 months after the conference. Everything else is included, and once that little exclusive window comes out, CFCast subscription will allow you to get all the content up on the CFCast website. So there's some perks for you there. But again, if you want to find out more about the community, you can go to community.audisolutions.com. But patreon.com/audisolutions is where you can find out some of the other packages. But again, we have a lot of great supporters on Patreon, and we have too many to list, but here are a few of the top Patreon supporters, so let's go through them now. So thank you, John Wilson from Synaptrix, Tomorrow's Guides, Jordan Clark, Gary Knight, John Carlo Gomez, David Ballinger, Dan Card, James Moberg and Jeffrey McGee from Sunstar Media, Dean Maunder, Kevin Wright, Doug Kane, Nolan Erg, Abdul Rahim, and again, up to 59 Patreon supporters. So we want to thank each and every one of you for spending your hard-earned money to support Audis and the things we're doing for the community. So thank you so much. Thanks everybody for joining us in the chat. Enjoy your week, everybody, and we'll see you soon. Thanks, everybody. Show notes for this episode can be found at cfmlnews.modernizeordie.io, where you can also subscribe to your favorite podcast player like Spotify or iTunes. We also have the link to YouTube to find more videos just like this. The music used in this podcast is under a royalty-free license from Sound.com and Blue Tree Audio.